So I'll say this, when I first got out of Full Sail, I had a little bit of a chip on my shoulder where I was like, oh, I don't need the intern. I know everything. I know how to do everything. They taught me everything I need to know, so there's nothing new. But then, like, when I started collaborating with people, I started learning how to do things from a different perspective, and it humbled me. It made me sit back and be like, you know what, because I started coming across people that never went to school. All they ever did was just jump right in, and they worked, and they had Grammys, they had plaques, and they had a sound that nobody could figure out, like, how are they getting this sound? Welcome to Studio Stories. I am King Cope, AKA Cope, and I'm an engineer, producer, audio producer, artist, and I'm here to share my story with you guys. So to start off, I've always been a technical person from birth, I'd say. My mom would tell you that I would take things apart, put them back together, 2, 3 years old, taking the screwdriver and screwing stuff. So my music, it started when I was probably about 10 years old. My father, back in the days, they used to have the radio systems. You had the equalizer, the CD player, the tuner. They was all separate, and they wired into like this amplifier. So when I was 10 years old, I seen my father hook it up, and from there, I just used to always play with it. And I always used to play with the EQs, and I didn't know it was called EQ then, but I used to always mess with the sounds. And what I would do is I would take my tapes and I would record songs off the radios that I like. You know, I'll just always keep it on record, hit pause. And when my favorite song came on, I'll unpause it and record it. And so I was initially making mixtapes. So that's how I really got into just being technical with the music. And I had a buddy, when I was probably like 12, he was like, yo, I think we should be rappers. We should try to rap. I'm like, okay. So I taught myself how to record the best way I could with what I had. And this is probably like 1996, 97. So I would take a boombox that used to have like a microphone built in it, and I would go to the big radio and I'll play an instrumental, and we would just rap on top of that. Then we would take the tape that we just recorded on, put it in the tape deck on the bigger radio, get a new tape, and then that's how we stacked our vocals and put ad-libs. And so people were thinking, yo, you're going to a studio? How did you go? Because back in them days, we wasn't no computer. It wasn't, you know, you had to really have a budget to record. Like, you had to have a record deal pretty much. So my friends was thinking like, man, how was you recording? So from there, it started turning into, all right, I'm gonna buy a karaoke machine with a microphone that I can record on the tape. And so I started passing my little tapes around at school. And there was a guy that moved in town from Chicago. His name was Phil, or we call him P Floater. And they was like, yo, Phil raps, you should get up with him. You guys should meet up and y'all should like try to do something. So by this time, this is like 8th grade. So we set it up, he came to the house, and he was a real rapper. I wasn't a real rapper back then. I used to take other people's lyrics and try to like make songs for him, but he came in and he really could rap. And so when he came and he seen my setup, he was like, man, this is where you making the songs at? Cause I go to a real studio. He was going to a real studio at the time. So he was just like, man, this is amazing that you even figure out how to record. So from there, me and him, we started making records together, and you know, he was able to convince his parents to buy certain pieces of gear, and we kind of just started recording. We started teaching ourselves how to record. He bought a 4-track Tascam tape machine. It was like a little blue tape machine. It had 4 channels on it. He had to buy these special tapes, but they were regular cassette-looking tapes, but there was like a Type 4 tape, and you could get 4 tracks of recording on there. So we started off with that, and then other kids at school was like, yo, how are you guys recording? So we started recording the kids at school. So by the time we got to like 9th, 10th grade, we was pretty known for recording and performing. We was doing the talent shows. And I want to say about 9th grade, the CD burners came out. So we started selling CDs at school. We was printing out these little stickers and putting them on the CDs and had our faces on it. And so we put out a compilation CD of kids around our school. And from there, the little money we made, we started buying more equipment. And we bought a condenser mic. We didn't know we needed a preamp. We didn't even know how to use it. Like we were just innovative at that time. So eventually, Phil had an older sister that was dating a guy that had a little bit of money. He actually was working in the music industry. And so when he heard what we was doing, he was like, yo, you guys can come to my studio and work. And he had a digital recorder. He had all kind of stuff. And it kind of took us to the next level. And from there, I wanted to become, more professional. I was making beats. I was doing all kind of stuff. So from there, I decided to go to school. Once I graduated high school, I went to Full Sail. And, if anybody know what Full Sail is, an audio recording school. And, that kind of just taught me the fundamentals. Came out of Full Sail. By the time I got back here, Phil had started, he came up with a new rap name, started calling himself P Floater, and we started recording in my mom's house. We started recording in the closet. And from there, it just started growing. It started growing, and we was already kind of popular. We from the Gwinnett, North Side area. So we was already popular because people knew from school that we was recording. And from there, it just grew. It just started growing. We was putting out little mixtapes out, and this is probably, by this time, it's like 2005, 2006. And that's pretty much how I got started. All right, so when I first got out of Full Sail, I graduated in '04, it wasn't too many people, all right, so those individuals that was recording at home, but it was more of people that might have went to school or they kind of was interning at a studio or they were musicians and they understood equipment. To what I see now I see like my daughter can do a session on her iPad and her phone and it's accepted, There was a time where I would send masters. I'd send songs to get mastered and the mastering engineer knew if it was an MP3 and he would absolutely not master it. Now they'll master your MP3, they'll master anything. So I've seen the acceptance of quality change. Before it had to sound a certain quality. Now it's just like, well, it sounds good to us, so we're gonna go with it. And that's the biggest thing I've seen change, which is not a bad thing, because I've come across artists that have great quality and terrible songs. And I've come across artists that have great songs with terrible quality. But when they try to go redo it and get the quality, it doesn't have the same feeling. So, when it comes to music, it's subjective. I say, and this is no disrespect, but I'll say Crime Mob, Nuck If You Buck. It didn't really sound that clear, like quality. And that came out when I was at Full Sail. So I was like, man, the quality sounds, but it's a classic. It's a classic record. And, so you can't really, but quality-wise, to me, the recording was a little bit low grade, but it's, and that's no disrespect because it's like one of my favorite records. Yeah, it's no disrespect. It's just, from a technical standpoint, yes. You know what I mean? I would love to get on tape. I've only recorded on tape a few times and I've used it. So far as analog, old school gear, I love tape because it's just a different sound. You can hear it in the older music, why the old music sounds the way it do compared to now. But then when we go to the future, we talk about new stuff. I love a lot of the DSP processing stuff they come out with. I like the, Apollo Twin. They've kind of changed the whole landscape of the game. Like that's almost like an entry-level piece of gear now with their emulation of the preamps. And I like their emulation mic. They have the Townsend. But as far as classics, I love the tube mics, like the Elam 251, the U49, or U47, I'm sorry, the Norman U47, the U67, a lot of the old school Telefunken stuff I like. Preamps and compressors, I love the analog, the vintage stuff, LA2A, 1176. Right now in Atlanta, I feel like the Atlanta sound is the Neve 1073 with the Tube Tech CL1B. There was a time where a lot of people didn't have that. I remember there was a time in Atlanta where the Avalon and the U87 was like the Atlanta sound, but now it's that U87 to the 1073 to the Tube Tech CL1B. I mean, I love analog gear. I love both. I love digital and analog. When I mix, I do a hybrid mix where I use analog gear and plugins. So I'll say this, when I first got out of Full Sail, I had a little bit of a chip on my shoulder where I was like, oh, I don't need to intern. I know everything. I know how to do everything. they taught me everything I need to know, so there's nothing new. But then like when I started collaborating with people, I started learning how to do things from a different perspective, and it humbled me. It made me sit back and be like, you know what, let me, because I started coming across people that never went to school. All they ever did was just jump right in and it worked. And they had Grammys, they had plaques, and they had a sound that nobody could figure out, like, how are they getting this sound? So I started being more open-minded to, you know what, when it comes to music, it's subjective, there's really no rules. So I started approaching things without my resume. Because a lot of people will walk into a room and they have to like throw their resume. Well, I've worked on this and I've done that. And it's like, okay, that's cool, but now we're here. So the coolest tricks I ever learned came from people that wasn't what we would say a real engineer. All my dopest effects and tricks and sounds came from people that was just like experimenting, like trying to teach themselves how to record. There was this artist named 7am, and he's not a mix engineer, but the sound that he developed for himself, I actually learned a lot just mixing his stuff. Getting in there, you know, now when I do mixes, I'm not quick to go and just pull somebody effects off. I actually listen to what they did and just try to enhance it. I don't try to change what people do, because it's an art in what they do. Like, my girls, you say it all the time, and being like naive into how to work with equipment, they figured out their sound, because they don't know how to really work it, but they figure out how to work it for them, and then within that, they done figured out their whole sound that other people are like, yo, we're trying to mimic this sound, and they're trying to follow the textbook rules, and it don't work that way. Not, at least not when it comes to music. I can't say any other industry, but when it comes to music, you gotta just kind of be open-minded to the session. So every session I approach, I'm kind of like a fly on the wall. I'm just watching and listening, not trying to come in and say, well, you should do it this way, because unless the timing is right, and it's like, yo, you know, it'll be a good idea if we stack it this way and do that, because it's gonna give you this. But a lot of times when I'm working with new artists, I just try to watch and learn from them, because, you know, they're creative too. I'll say, so I've engineered for Young Jeezy, or Jeezy. I've engineered for him for a few years, and we've done a few projects together, but the last project we did together was called Snowfall. And he granted me the opportunity to record every song and mix every song, which is very rare in most cases. They usually get a different engineer to mix it. And I left that process knowing, like, just dealing with the labels and being organized, but still not being so technical that it kills the vibe. So I learned a lot in that situation, because we started off the project working with Justice League, and you know, every day we're in there for like 90 days. We're going in every day, 8 to 10 hour days, sometimes 12-hour days, just trying to throw ideas on the wall, see what's gonna stick, and just really being open-minded. Not scared to voice my opinion, but not also try to force my opinion on anybody, but just be like, oh, you know, I think it sounded better when we had it like this, but, you know, and if nobody agreed with it, it's okay, you know. So to me, that was one of the situations I walked out of, you know, just learning. Because, you know, as a tracking engineer, a lot of times you just record this artist and the next artist come in, that artist, and it's different when you're recording a project. A lot of times when an artist is doing a project and they're doing it together, it's a theme, it's a lot of moving parts, it's a lot of egos, and you can't get caught up in the ego part. You just have to just be open-minded to everything. All right, depending on what I'm doing. So when I'm doing production, I'm producing, I like to listen to a lot of my old beats or beats I've made. I put it in shuffle mode and I just kind of vibe. And for me, what that does, that kind of gives me the confidence. Because sometimes you can go into a session like, man, I hope they like what I'm about to bring. I hope they like the beats I play. So sometimes I have to, or all the time that I'm going into production, I try to listen to some of the stuff I've already worked on and try to draw inspiration from that to remind me of, like, you know, you do this, you've done this before. There's no need to be nervous. When I'm working with artists, I just try to be a fly on the wall and just listen to what they're saying and try to understand, not be quick to be like, man, I don't like that, or that's not the way we do it. Because there's been times I tried to do that and they shut me down, you know. I had an artist I worked with one time and he wanted me to use his template. And I was gun-ho, like, nah, man, we're gonna use my template because I know how to record in it. And he got mad and called the guy that recommended me, like, hey, man, he's not trying. And I had to fall back and be like, you know, I'll use your template because that's how he wants to sound. So I always just try to be like, just try to understand how the artist wants to work, ask a lot of questions. Even sometimes it feels repetitive or redundant. I just ask a lot of questions sometimes when I'm working with new artists or even artists I've worked with before because they might want to do something new, they want to do something different. I'll ask them for a reference if I need, like, well, what do you like to listen to? What songs do you like? Or what are you going for? If they try to explain something to me that I don't understand, I'm like, well, which songs are you referencing? I got my big homie, Vic. I might know him as Billboard Killer. I've been knowing him since 2007. He reached out to me on MySpace, if you guys remember that. And, you know, I had a little beat page up, and he was like, oh, man, I like your production. I'm a songwriter, and I have a crew, and we're looking for beats and stuff. And then we got to talking, and I was like, well, I actually engineer, too. He was like, well, really, I need an engineer more than a producer. And from there, man, we just became like best friends. And he's a little bit older than me, but he's always, and we bump heads. I'm not gonna act like I just be like listening to him all the time, but we bump heads, but he always is never like trying to steer me the wrong way. He's always like trying to look out. Even when I don't agree with him, he's always like, nah, man, you need to move like this. You need to do like this. And so he's probably one of my biggest mentors. I think when it comes to mentoring, I don't think you could really look for a mentor. I think they just kind of happens, you know? Like sometimes you might get around somebody and their energy is good and they're talking and they're saying things you need to hear. I think my best advice is just try to align yourself with them if you can, if it's possible, if there's like a opportunity to work with them and ask them questions. If they're open to asking questions and they're open to you being around, I say try to reach out to them. I've had people recommend different engineers to me or guys that want to get into engineering to want to learn and me mentor them. And I've never had an issue with it. But what I kept running into was these guys would never call me. After I offered them, like, you can always come to the studio, you can always hang out, like, I would never hear from them. Like, they was waiting for me to call them. And a lot of times it's like, if you're trying to get jewels or you want to learn something for somebody, you have to show that you want to learn. It's not that I wouldn't have called them, but I just wish they would have been more like, you know, giving me the feeling like, yo, I really want to learn this, and what are you doing today? You know, calling me they ain't got to call me every day, but if they called me every day, I wouldn't be annoyed by it. So I feel like if you find somebody you want to mentor under and you feel like they can help you, you should be calling them every day, unless they're like, yo, don't call me every day. But you should have the energy of like, well, when can I get in? When can I intern on you? When can I do whatever? You know, kind of show a little interest in it. I say organization and consistency together. It can't be one or the other. Because you could be organized, but then if you're not consistent, you know, you're going to drop the ball. Or you could be consistent, but then if you're not organized, you might miss an opportunity when it knocks. So I believe organization, consistency, more than anything. More than loyalty, because you could be loyal to the wrong situation, and that can hold you back. I'm not saying you shouldn't be loyal, but you should make sure anything that you're loyal to is just as loyal to you as well. Best thing I can do is share my experiences and tell them, you know, this is what happened to me, or this is what I've been through, or this is how this person did me. And, you know, but I don't really have like a book or a video to go watch. Maybe they'll come studio stories and, you know, hey, you know, maybe they'll be coming here to find out. In the last 2 years, I started feeling a way about engineering so much. Because, you know, it's good, it pays, but once it's paid, it's paid. There's no back end, there's no royalty. So I decided, so let me move back a little bit. So at some point, when I was coming out of Full Sail or going to Full Sail, at some point, I dropped the whole artistry thing. Because the whole reason I got into it was to learn how to record myself, learn how to mix my beats. And at some point, I got so deep into engineering that I lost path of the artistry. So moving forward, come, I want to say during the pandemic, maybe 2021, I kept telling myself like, man, I want to put a project out. I didn't want to do a compilation CD with a bunch of artists because I felt like depending on other people can kind of stagnate you too. So I didn't want to depend on nobody. So I decided to start recording again, start rapping again. And it was a challenge because, I mean, when I stopped rapping, I felt like I wasn't even really that good. That's why I stopped. So I had to try to figure out how to do it. But I had one of my good friends, Dante. He's been around since the beginning. He was around when I was learning how to record on the tapes. And he just was starting, when I told him I wanted to do it, he started pulling up. I was like, all right, well, come on, let's get on the mic, let's freestyle, let's rap. And he was really trying to help me figure it out. And so after about like so many attempts, I finally created a song. And from there, I just started reaching out to everybody I worked with, like, hey man, I'm starting to record. Can you help me with lyrics? I'm not gonna act like I'm the biggest lyricist, because I'm really a technical person. So some songs I started, the first few songs, all right, the very first song I recorded that I have a project out on, I wrote it myself. Then after that, it got harder because I was like, I don't know what to talk about. I'm an engineer. So I started figuring things to talk about, and I had a couple guys that I used to record that really like valued my beats and stuff, and I asked them, my boy named Prophet, he's from Mississippi, I asked him if he could start helping me with records, and he really started helping me. And with him feeding me a lyric here, a bar here, I started gaining the confidence to start writing a lot of my records. And so I put out a project early this year. It took me about 2 years to really record it, but I put it out, I put the single out New Year's, it's called My Energy, and I put the whole project out in February. It's called Cope Coin Volume 1, Invest in Yourself. Do yourself a favor, invest in yourself. And it's just an inspirational project. It's no murdering on them, no killing. It's just, just talking about, getting to the bag, investing into your family, investing into yourself, building up your, being healthy. It's just a positive album. And I did it for myself just to like, just to have something out. So when you go look me up, you won't just see my engineering credits, but you actually say, oh, this is this guy, And that was my purpose of doing it. Don't be scared. Don't be scared to say no, and don't be scared to say yes. Because my experience is a lot of people say no to the wrong situations, and a lot of people say yes to the wrong situations. So I say be scared. I mean, don't be scared, but try. Don't be scared to try new things out of your comfort zone. Don't be scared to learn a new skill. You got kids now. My daughter's 10 and she can like, anything she think of, she can do. She has a YouTube channel. I don't even have a YouTube channel. She has a YouTube channel with skits that she do every day. So I say don't be scared to try new things and get out there and adventure, because honestly, you never know what your calling might be. You might wake up and say, hey, I'm a rapper today, but then you might try something new and be like, actually, I'm better at being a cinematographer. I'm better at actually doing, so don't be scared. You still could be a rapper, Like just be open-minded, especially in music. You have to be open-minded. Like example, like my mentor, I was telling you, Vic, when I met him, he was doing straight R&B, man, like straight R&B music. Man, this man do country music now. He's working with country artists. So it's just being open-minded to do, just because it's about getting to the next level, next platform. Sometimes you could be like, no, this is what I do. I'm sticking to this, and then that's all you're ever going to be doing. You might not get out of that situation. So just be open-minded is my biggest advice, I'll say. This has been Studio Stories, and I'm King Cope. You can check me out on all platforms at King Cope 84. Please go check out my album by King Cope called Cope Coin Volume 1. Do yourself a favor, invest in yourself. Thank you.